We are back with more NFL coverage, and to get straight into it, Achane is currently dealing with what was determined to be a calf injury. Earlier in the week, they initially called it just a lower body soft tissue injury, but they've upgraded it to that status. Now, I don't know what exactly that means for his availability in terms of the regular season. I believe that he would be okay, but it would suck if he does have to miss any time regarding this injury, because this is a player who is, in all honesty, trying to put together a solid third season in the NFL. To start off his career, things have been pretty mixed when it comes to him. There's no denial that he has the potential to be a very great all-around running back. But you gotta think about how things progress from year 1 to year 2 for him. I mean, that 2023 season from him literally saw him just burst out of the gates into making elite plays for the Dolphins almost immediately. And the explosive plays that he generated with consistency in that regular season were very telling. When you can come out for any stretch of time and average far over 5 yards per carry in the league, you're treading into very elite territory at the running back position. And yet Achane, in his first season, on 103 rushes in 11 games, managed to put up 7.8 yards per carry. One of the highest marks for any starting level running back in any regular season. And he was doing this as a sort of by committee piece alongside Raheem Mostert and the like. Seeing that and seeing the potential that he had, he just became the full-time starter for the Dolphins in 2024, starting in 16 of the 17 games that he played in. And while his production did increase collectively, offensive struggles did not escape him in the least. On 100 more carries in 6 more games, Achane had 907 rushing yards. Now, by no means is that a failure. That's still a very solid season. But at multiple points through some of these games, you were just wondering what the hell was going on with the offense. Because for a player as explosive as Achane has proven to be, he seemingly was not getting the space that he would need to switch into that second gear and pick up damn near a first down on every carry. He did have a great all-around season, though. Like I said, 1,500 yards from scrimmage for him and 12 total touchdowns, including 6 receiving and also 6 on the ground. That is still a tremendous season of work, and he's still got all the potential in the world. But the Dolphins need to ensure that they can build a competent enough offensive line when it comes to run blocking, so that Devon Achane can flourish as a prospect. Because outside of him, everything else is a little up in the air right now. You know, Jalen Wright could serve to be that second guy, and Ollie Gordon III was a Ollie Gordon II, was a good pickup in the draft. Don't get me wrong. He truly was. But he's still got to go out and prove it himself. Not to mention that they lost Alexander Madison for the season. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? They've got a lot to figure out outside of DeVonta Smith. He is their unquestioned starter. So, you need to maximize his potential on the field. Because it's there. And believe me, I'm not saying that he can replicate a 7.8 yard per carry clip like he did in season 1. It's something that rarely happens for even the greatest running backs to grace the NFL. That is such a high bar for an individual to set in their rookie season. And maybe his second season might have looked like a bit of a regression to some people because of that drop-off. But make no mistake about it. If they can provide the right support around him, Devon Achane is very capable of a 1,100 yard rushing season. At least. It's also dependent on who they select as their running back 2 to maybe alleviate the burden that he will bear. Because again, they are asking a lot of a 5'9" running back to essentially be their workhorse and a versatile running back as well. But if they can utilize him correctly, he's capable of at least a 1,100 yard season and at least a 600 yard receiving season, especially with the way that Tua Tagovailoa runs this offense. Now, I can agree that some of the schemes that Mike McDaniel uses probably need to cease, honestly, because when we get into December and January football, they are a team that is predicated on speed, and they crumble every single year in every single game in those moments because they're sticking to the same redundant offense. And other teams at that point have figured them out and can read them like a book on the defensive side of the ball pretty much every time. They're rendered ineffective, and they don't even have an identity outside of that once you take away their threat of the speed. All that needs to change. And you could say that Achane himself does need to learn how to take more contact, I would say. Like, that's fair. You know, if you're asking him to become the primary running back, he needs to be able, even if he does have a smaller frame, he's got to build up a little bit of muscle, acquire a little bit of strength over the course of the offseason to be able to bear all of that additional weight that might be trying to deter him from making some of those big plays. I get that. But the Dolphins are just as culpable in this. And I would hope, starting in week 1, that they try to turn things around for him. Because there is truly a lot of potential to be great within Achane. I see it. It is still very much there for the 23 and soon to be 24-year-old throughout the course of the season. You just gotta continue to give him a much better chance than whatever the hell last year was. I mean, we can just go through and look at some of these game logs. It's like his start to the season last year was just a mixed bag of results. Like, he had some of his stronger games down the stretch of the season, but those 907 rushing yards were an absolute struggle to get. We're talking about multiple games that I see here with him getting far less than 50 yards and other games with far less than even 30. Take this week 1 game versus Jacksonville last year, where he had 10 rushes for 24 yards. Or this game versus Seattle, and I very much remember that game. As sloppy as it was for the Seahawks offense, the Dolphins couldn't do much either. And their weak rushing attack certainly did not help. Because in this game, he had just 11 rushes for 30 yards. The very next week, against the Titans, saw him rush 10 times for 15 yards. Against the Pats, 3 rushes for 18. Against the Pats in the second matchup, he had just 10 rushes for 32 yards. And then against the Packers on November 28th, just 7 rushes for 14 yards. Next week, in that killer of an overtime win against the Jets, which was a great game. Great contributions by Jonnu Smith. But would they have been in that situation if they got a lot better production out of Achane in regulation? He had just 14 rushes for 24 yards in this game. And then in the second to last game of the season against the Browns, he had just 10 rushes for 25 yards. Like, are you serious right now? You're talking about multiple games with less than 30 and sometimes even 20 rushing yards. Yes, the NFL is a pass-happy league, but if you're going to have a shorter amount of touches in a game, you need to be making the most of those touches. And the fact that that wasn't even close to happening more often than not held the Dolphins back. You know, if they are predicated on trying to win a game with their speed, their regression in that aspect of run blocking and overall rushing production forced them to become a team that had to get physical and had to grind out sustained and tactical football drives to win games. And they struggled to do it. There's a reason that they missed out on the playoffs. And even if they would have made it, who's to say they would have truly won a game playing a brand of football that they just aren't accustomed to or are not willing to conform to for whatever reason at this point. I just know that Achane is much better than this. And granted, it's not a full reflection on him. Again, yeah, there are multiple cases where he had his own miscommunications in terms of running behind specific gaps and failing to handle those assignments, or, again, allowing even the weakest bit of contact to just stop his momentum. Those things are on him. But again, you got to have better run blocking. And also, keep in mind, some of these games saw him miss time due to injury because he was getting banged up that frequently. And again, for a person of his stature, even if he is taking all of the necessary steps to get his body right in the offseason, that ain't something you want to be dealing with on a week-to-week basis, worrying about whether or not Achane is 100% healthy for the next game. You should have an idea and a full confirmation of the notion that he is fully healthy, week in, week out. Because to play all of these games back to back to back to back, while having all of these injuries hamper you at the same time, it's not hard to see why he'd struggle to find his momentum throughout the course of the season. But hopefully he can hit the ground running in week 1, and I suppose we'll see what happens from there. But yeah, this video, again, akin to the video before the last one, is really just gonna touch on a lot of different injuries, man. I mean, to move on to the Panthers here, edge rusher Nic Scourton, another rookie edge rusher from Texas A&M, in fact, was actually practicing with the Panthers last week, and what ended up happening, per the report from Schefter, is that his lung collapsed in practice, and they were initially going to rule him out for the game, but I guess upon further review with x-rays and things of that nature, the severity of the injury was much worse than they anticipated, and he is set to miss a good portion of time. Now, how much time? That wasn't outlined. I would hope that he can return at some point in his rookie season, but a collapsed lung is nothing to play with by any stretch of the imagination, man. I would hope that he is all good, but it's like, dude, he seems like he's got a pretty good amount of potential, and the Panthers need as much help from their rookie talent as they can get. They've consistently been one of the worst teams in football over the past few years, all around, really. And Scourton could be an individual who helps them tremendously with rushing the passer and also being able to stop the run. He's got the tangible qualities to make that happen. Talking about a person who's 6'2" and 257, while also being just 21 years old. Soon to be, in fact. So there's a lot of potential there. But you're not going to be able to play a full game of football if you don't have your breathing in full force. If you don't have that functioning well, it's just not going to be feasible to play through an entire NFL game. Because that's essentially what a collapsed lung will do to an individual. When that happens, it is literally just going to alter your breathing pattern like you wouldn't believe. And that can be scary for any person to deal with, let alone an athlete. Now, a collapsed lung doesn't necessarily mean that it is completely removed from its proper placement in your body, but it is certainly out of place. It needs to be restored prior to you being able to return to those activities requiring that amount of exertion. So I would believe that would have to happen for Scourton as well. He's obviously going to have to get that right back in proper motion and get his breathing, his overall circulation, in fact. He's going to have to get that in rhythm again before he can see the field. And again, let alone do football activities when it comes to training for the game and also just generally gone over the defensive playbook. All that's going to have to be put on hold. So what's most important is making sure that he is fully healthy and able to function well enough so that he can perform to the best of his abilities. Again, yes, I'm saying that about a rookie. There will certainly be growing pains. I don't think it's going to be a season for him where he'll light up all of these opposing offenses out of the gates. It could happen, but more often than not, it is a bit of time, usually, for some of the more successful players. It takes a bit of time to perfect that craft. You just want Scourton to be able to have the chance to go through the motions while actually being a presence on the team. Make those mistakes and also get yourself some major victories in the midst of all of that. But through it all, just be out there with the other people on that defense, representing the team that drafted you. That's what it's going to all be about for him. Quentin Johnston would also go down with an injury, although I didn't see it live. And granted, when I saw the headline, of course I wouldn't want to see that happen to somebody. But essentially, during the middle of a play in one of their most recent preseason games, he was hit and knocked unconscious. He had to be carted off of the field, and he would be diagnosed with a concussion. So I'm sure that at this point, he's still going through the protocol. He will likely be able to recover in time. I would hope so, at least. And there haven't been any, I guess, just weird follow-ups regarding any potential worse information surrounding it. So that might be the full extent of the situation. Quentin Johnston has certainly had an interesting start to his career. We obviously know about all of the different struggles he's dealt with, specifically with drops. Nevertheless, he did manage to put together a solid season as a potential wide receiver 2, logging 55 receptions for 711 passing yards and 8 touchdowns. The thing about Quentin Johnston is this, though, and this is going to be the question that he needs to answer very soon, I would say. What role does he fill exactly? What role does he fill? Quentin Johnston was heralded when the time came around for that 2023 draft. He was heralded as a number 1 receiver with amazing 50-50 potential. Even if some of his, catching techniques were cited as a bit of an issue, clearly the Chargers decided to select him with that pick for the purpose of having him become that kind of wide receiver. And yet, even though his rookie season was definitely a bit underwhelming, it seemed like the game plan changed up a little bit in year 2. There were still drives, there were still plays where Quentin Johnston was viewed as a wide receiver 1 sometimes. And yet, there were other plays where it was looking as though he was the third option in that wide receiver core, because Josh Palmer would be getting looked at over him, Will Dissly would be getting looked at over him, and Ladd McConkey burst onto the scene out of the gates as a potential number 1, even though people would tell you he has the build of a slot receiver. So, with Keenan Allen now coming over on this short-term deal for the Chargers, I don't know if it's going to be answered this season. Because you're going to want to give Keenan Allen the necessary reps. But is he going to fill as a complementary piece towards, I should say, Keenan Allen on the outside? Is he going to be the number 2 in this case? And you would have Ladd McConkey as a slot guy, dominating from there. Or is there an inverse method that they're trying to approach this from? I don't really have the answer to that question right now. Again, this is something that would develop over the course of the entire season. It's not going to be answered right out of the gates, but I don't know. It's just something to watch out for. Because when it comes time for giving him his second contract, or maybe giving him a potential 5th-year option, that is exactly what they're going to be looking at, the front office, in this case. They're going to be looking at how he's been utilized throughout the course of his entire career. And it's been just a pretty inconsistent situation for him to start out. Now that could be a number of different reasons, I should say. I mean, obviously going through a coaching change might have honestly changed a few things for Quentin Johnston in terms of the overall standing of him on his own team, in terms of the way the offense is run, due to Greg Roman being the new offensive coordinator. Maybe that might have something to do with it, and he could settle in even more, or potentially sustain this kind of contribution in his offense with another year of experience under his belt. I don't know. I would truly want to understand where their headspace is at on this. We will see sooner rather than later, though. But hopefully, in terms of this concussion, he is totally prepared to go and in good condition for week 1. Dominic Puni, one of the linemen for, I believe, he was a rookie for the 49ers last season. And yet, even with that being said, he could miss time with a PCL injury. And in fact, if it's severe enough, it could cost him his entire season. It does suck for an offensive line that really, outside of Trent Williams, and that's the craziest thing about it. Like, they can be elite as a run blocking unit, and they can do well in pass protection. But a lot of that credit goes to how great Trent Williams still is, even in this later stage of his career. There are just a number of different question marks in every other position on that offensive line, Puni being one of them. I mean, don't get me wrong, he did have a solid season last year and was a reliable guard option for them. Still, though, he couldn't truly prove his full worth to the team, because in terms of the run blocking, all of these people went down with injury. So even if he was producing well in that aspect, it's like, who the hell was he blocking for by the end of the season? They just haven't found that true consistency since the start of last season, to be honest. And I should even say, since the start of the 2024 offseason, with all of these people just flowing in and out of the lineup, it's going to be hard to rebuild that chemistry. There's a chance that they still can, and it looks like they have some of their core guys coming back, so that should help things. But now you're missing yet another person in Puni potentially for the season. And that just creates another hole in that roster that you're going to have to try to solve. And you're not really going to get a quality option, but you have to look for a quick fix of some kind. So I believe that's what the 49ers would do within, I guess, the next few days leading up to the regular season, is just find a guard to replace Puni if he actually does end up having to miss the rest of the regular season this year. Because that is kind of the road you have to take here. We'd have a trade. So the Texans would trade John Metchie III to the Eagles in exchange for Harrison Bryant and a future pick swap. I think it makes sense for both teams, to be honest. It just gives the Eagles another offensive weapon to use. Now, John Metchie III, first of all, you have to appreciate the fact that he is now able to play football after battling leukemia before he could even step onto the field. The fact that he even got in the big leagues is a true testament to his dedication, first and foremost, and above all else. So that is the more important thing to mention about John Metchie here. As far as his contributions on the field go, they haven't truly screamed that of an elite role player yet. It's something that he would have to grow into with time, I should say, but let's face it, he was not utilized a ton on that Texans roster. Like, there were certain cases where he was the 5th or 6th wide receiver, and the numbers from his career so far are 40 overall receptions with 412 yards. He caught his first and only NFL touchdown last season. That kind of reads more like a very low on the depth chart sort of player. And with a lot of the different receiving talent that the Texans have brought in just this year, even when you go so far as to look at both Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel out of the draft, not to mention Christian Kirk in this offseason, and not to mention Nico Collins already, you have a pretty well-rounded receiver core already. Not to mention that, again, they could be holding out for Tank Dell. He is obviously not playing this season. So that is just another way you got to think about this. With that many bodies in that wide receiver room, Metchie III, for as fortunate as he is to be playing in the NFL at this point, he may have very well been the odd man out of that wide receiver room. You have just too much talent that is available to you right now. And Metchie III, while he could be good, it feels like with the Texans, he would just continue to rot on the bench. He wouldn't be able to maximize his potential there. Now, as far as the Eagles go, well, to have A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith, one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, I am not really sure that I could say the same thing for John Metchie III in that case. Like, sure, he may still not get a lot of playing time, but I feel like the Eagles' offense is one that will certainly find room to consistently utilize John Metchie III. Because outside of those two, there's nothing truly certain about that core when it comes to strictly wide receivers. Obviously, Dallas Goedert is a mainstay in that offense. There's no question about it. But they recently brought over Jahan Dotson after the trade deadline, so I understand that. And even still, he only got a few looks in his time with the Eagles last season. He was not utilized that greatly. I'm not going to lie. Then you mention as well, for other receivers here, you have Kenneth Gainwell, who's now gone. Could have probably been another receiver option out of the backfield. Anais Smith, Johnny Wilson, Britton Covey, Paris Campbell, Jack Stoll, and John Ross III. It's just, And that's just from last year. Some of these guys are probably coming back as well. So, again, that room is top heavy compared to the Texans having a lot of elite talent spread out all over the place. I believe truly that if they can find a few plays for him to build off of on a game-to-game basis, there's room for John Metchie III to become a pretty solid weapon. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to put up elite wide receiver numbers in this particular year. And really, if he does remain a part of this roster with everyone still in place, that likely won't happen. But it helps to just keep the team fresh. And also, just make a few additions while being able to subtract some of these players who haven't been able to break out on your roster. Like, I'm sure that some of these other guys have probably been cleared off the team at this point. And Britton Covey, even with him being listed as a wide receiver, serves as more of a return man. So all I'm saying is, for John Metchie III, even if it looks kind of bleak right now, and even if you're on the outside looking in thinking that he might not be able to make any impact on this Eagles squad, hold on. There is a chance that he can do something with them. There's a chance. Again, it will take work. It is not going to happen off the gates. It's not going to happen in week one. Like, it is going to be a full season redevelopment of everything that he has come to know as a wide receiver. Because even with him having a bit of a smaller frame, and even with him potentially getting more looks, they're going to have ask him to do so much more in that offense. They just are. So we'll see if he is truly ready for that task. But he's just got to hang in there for a little more time. Like, his career is truly still just getting started. So that'll definitely be interesting to watch. As for Harrison Bryant, for him to get picked up for the Texans, seeing that Brevin Jordan just went down for the season, it's a perfect replacement. You know, you understand that John Metchie III at this point might not be a player that you use a whole ton this season. And in losing one of your better backup tight ends, it is a proper solution to replace him by getting another backup tight end. Like, I don't see why not. Now, Harrison Bryant serves as more of a blocker. And that could certainly help their offense. There's a little bit of a familiarity there as well, because Nick Chubb was his teammate, serving those same kind of duties for 4 years alongside him as a blocker. So, I mean, that is just a pretty good move in that aspect. You know, he'll be able to come down with some catches for time to time, but let's be honest, in 5 years, he still has not reached 900 receiving yards. And he has not had a single receiving season over 240. So he's not going to be a player that stretches the field for them, or a player that gets them first downs like that. But when it comes to utilizing and maximizing their potential in the run game, with both Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon when they're healthy, that is a pretty good piece to have in making sure that that is one of the best attacks in the league. No question about it. The Panthers would sign Bryce Perkins from the UFL. Perkins has underwent an interesting pathway throughout his career. He did actually win the UFL MVP last year, although in many games that I actually did happen to catch with him playing, he was mostly just utilizing that ability to rush the ball. He did actually have a solid passing season, but his greatest threat at every level, whether it's been him playing in college for Virginia, whether it's been him playing in the NFL with the Rams, or whether it's been in that league to work his way back into the NFL, it is his ability to run the football. No question about it. Now, they were stating that some of the other backup quarterbacks in the Panthers roster were getting injured and going down for a little while. So they just decided to make this signing here. And again, to have someone to rely on like that is always important. It's not a bad move. This also isn't the first time the Panthers have taken a chance on a quarterback from a spring league as well. But let's just put it like this. They signed P.J. Walker and it did not work out. So is the same thing going to happen for Bryce Perkins? I guess we'll see. Devin Duvernay would also go down with an injury and is set to miss a little bit of time. Although again, that specific status wasn't necessarily outlined. So I guess we'll see if he is available by the start of the NFL season. But that hasn't been determined at this point of time. The Colts would recently sign Xavien Howard. It is a solid move for a roster that has been pretty busy in this offseason when it comes to rebuilding that entire defensive back room. Obviously, they lost Justin Blackman, but they did manage to get Charvarius Ward, Cameron Bynum, and now have Xavien Howard as a part of that core, while also somehow, through all of this, being able to keep Kenny Moore II. Like, that's a pretty solid cornerback room. Don't get me wrong, and Xavien Howard when he has been in good condition, has been an elite corner for quite some time. I suppose in 2023, he may have taken a step back. At least that's how the Dolphins saw it. Because they were trying to, I guess, work out a new deal with him through multiple negotiations across multiple months. Suppose he just felt as though he was worth way more than what the Dolphins were offering him at the time. And I suppose in that, he just decided to sit out for the season. He had also been dealing with a few injuries over the course of the years, but nothing really too significant up to that point. Now, in terms of stuff outside of football, that's not even something I'm going to get into, because given how true it looks to be, it's utterly disgusting to talk about. All you gotta do is look it up. Yeah, he was in some very weird stuff off the field. I'm not even gonna address it here. I probably did address it at the time it was actually reported. But it is some bullshit. I'm not getting into that. Yeah, hell no. If we're just keeping it football, though, he has been out of football in the 2024 season entirely, and now returns to the game a little older at the age of 32. So, at the very least, if he actually does have a bit more in him, we're talking about at least a couple or so really good years from Xavien Howard up until he starts to see even more regression. I suppose that this was a risk the Colts were willing to take. And, in some aspects that is fair. For any team, you gotta have the proper balance of youth and veteran leadership to be able to win anything in the NFL. That much is true. But will it pay off for them here? Because, again, Kenny Moore III is still relatively young, I believe. And Charvarius Ward might be a little on the older side. But nevertheless, all of these guys are right around the age of 30. Yeah, Kenny Moore will be 30 in just a few days. Charvarius Ward is 29, and Xavien Howard comes back at 32. Now, again, I'm not going to be like some of the people who were talking about the Steelers core, labeling them as old and just washed up. I'm not going to say that. Like, they are all still very elite at what they do. And you can make the argument that they're right in the middle of their primes. Like, I guess it's just stigma surrounding any player who gets over the age of 30 who isn't, I guess, a quarterback. It's crazy work. Like, they're also elite corners in their own right. So, the Colts defense could be pretty solid on that front. If anything, it's their pass rush that needs to come around. You look at Latu, and other young rushers that they have on that squad. It is them that need to take a massive jump this season. Because that'll make the job even easier for these veteran cornerbacks. But for the Colts to go out and get them, it is certainly a little bit of a risk. But I think it's a pretty sound move. Brian Robinson Jr., honestly, has been a great running back for the Commanders. So to hear this about him was a little bit interesting, because according to Adam Schefter, he is potentially going to be traded. The Commanders have been reportedly shopping around, looking to see what is the best destination for Brian Robinson Jr. regarding a trade. And that is also dependent on what kind of return they're getting for him. I'm like, what? Like, geez. It's a little crazy to me. He's been a consistent player for them since he's gotten there. And yet, they feel as though, per the report as well, that they have other younger, better, and cheaper options than Robinson Jr. at this point. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, yeah, I guess if you want to be able to cut costs in a case like this, where you have a quarterback on a rookie scale contract, I suppose you want to practice that early, but at the same time, even if you're not willing to pay Brian Robinson Jr. that much, the man has been a pretty good talent for you. He's had consistent 700, damn near 800 rushing yard seasons, and had 8 touchdowns last year on the ground. Like, you can't teach consistency, and he's been that. While every other running back on that depth chart is got a little bit of a question mark surrounding him. I mean, Austin Eckler is just, quite frankly, old at this point. And he had a fine season last year, but he is progressively getting up there in age. So, of course, if we're going by the logic that running backs are not worth a damn after they're 28, Eckler is kind of putting that myth to rest, but there's still a lot of caution that comes with it. Anything could happen at any moment. Like, you never really know. And then for a lot of the other running backs that they mentioned, you got a few rookies and practice squad guys in there. You also have some returning guys like Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Jeremy McNichols. Again, while they can be fine running backs and they do provide a lot of speed compared to Brian Robinson Jr., can you really say they are better for that offense than Brian Robinson Jr.? I don't know about that. And then also, they drafted Krosky Merritt. That, honestly, did end up being a good selection in my opinion. And if Krosky Merritt can get the chance, I think he could put together a pretty solid career for them. He did get a few reps in last night, and honestly, with what I saw, he did play well. That is a player that has been highlighted the most when it comes to a potential move for Brian Robinson Jr. to get traded, though. Because if he does get traded, Krosky Merritt steps in and becomes at least the number 2, maybe number 3 option. And that could change everything for both sides. So there's a lot of uncertainty around a situation like this. But, I don't know. It's just not something I can get behind. Like, Robinson Jr. literally gets drafted and then has a life or death situation. Potentially end his career and maybe even his life before he even starts playing. He comes out and he's nothing but a bulldog for your team since he's been in the NFL, and yet you're gonna trade him. That's nasty, nasty work. to say the least. The Dolphins signed Matthew Judon to a 1-year, $6 million contract. Even if he is now 33 years old, the man is still a pretty damn good pass rusher. And for what the Dolphins need, it is a perfect fit. I mean, we're not even just talking about the veteran leadership that he could provide to the other edge rushers on that team, especially a person like Jalen Phillips, who is trying to put together a healthy and productive NFL season this year, but also when looking at a lot of the other talent that they have there, you're looking for someone who is available. And yes, while his last season with the Pats did see him miss 13 games due to injury, he did play in all 17 last year. Now, yeah, his season with the Falcons, largely because of the team themselves, wasn't really anything to write home about by his standards. But he was still fairly productive in his role. And I think that's what the Dolphins are anticipating here. Just his presence on the football field alone should provide an opportunity for other edge rushers to play off of that and hopefully become elite in their own regard. I'm sure that Judon will also be able to give them a tremendous amount of advice when it comes to playing the position at an elite level. After all, he has definitely experienced the highs and lows of being one in the NFL. So if there's anyone to learn from, it would certainly be him. Again, it's not a long-term commitment by any stretch of the imagination. They have the ability to do whatever it is they want with him after this season. And to think that Matthew Judon was at a pretty high point in his career to start off the decade, in fact, now only to be treated as just a rental year in, year out, has definitely got to be tough for him. Still, he's accepting the terms and he's willing to play for the team. So, that, even though this was a pretty late signing for them, it also now helps them have a bit of a leg up on some of the other competition in the AFC East. I mean, after all, we are talking about a player in Judon who terrorized the Dolphins when he was a Patriot. Now, other teams are going to be feeling that wrath. That's definitely got to be a good feeling. Felix Anudike-Uzomah for the Chiefs is going to miss this NFL season due to strained hamstring injury. It sucks because we have talked about a lot of the other Chiefs defensive linemen, namely Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, being elite pieces on that roster. Anudike-Uzomah was drafted pretty late in the first round in 2023, and to be honest, his career just hasn't really taken off all that much. He did see an increase in production last year. He got a few more starts, and he was able to put together nearly 3 sacks, while nearly doubling his amount of tackles and also getting 6 TFLs as a player. From that standpoint, maybe this season could have seen another massive leap up into not only, I guess, trust with the organization, but also value for himself. And yet, the opportunity to see both of those things improve is probably just out of the window for now, unfortunately, given the kind of injury that he's dealing with. Hopefully he can recover from this fully and effectively. It does certainly hurt the Chiefs when it comes to trying to have as much depth on that defensive line as you can. But I feel like they are an elite enough team, and honestly, with everything that they do, we've seen it time and time again with Kansas City in this sort of dynasty period of theirs, okay? Even if it's looking like a dire situation, more often than not, they're going to be able to overcome it. I have no reason to believe, with what I've seen from them, that they can't overcome this. It's a tough loss for sure, but they're gonna be able to get some of their other players to step up. And even without Anudike-Uzomah on the field, they could still be able to get right back to the same spot they were in February. I'm just being honest. DeVonta Smith was dealing with a groin injury, so he missed practice today. And I guess his status hasn't been updated recently either. There's a chance, though, that he'll be able to go by week 1. I would be sure. They'll probably take it easy on him in the last preseason game. Because, I mean, some teams have been electing to play their starters, but at the same time, like, the Eagles are just trying to make sure that their players are all healthy for the regular season. So, if DeVonta Smith is already dealing with that, it might be counterintuitive for them to still run him out for at least even a couple of drives in the last preseason game of this year. It just might not be worth it. And I can't blame them for having that mindset. Like, if you truly want to run it back, you're not going to be able to do it without a player in DeVonta Smith, who was the recipient of a good portion of Jalen Hurts' yards and touchdowns in the big game. So you just want to make sure that he's in as great of a condition as he can be leading up to the start of the regular season. Any measure that you can take to get him back to 100% before then is going to be pretty ideal compared to playing him through an injury of that sort. But in terms of week 1 starters, they would be determined, at least a few of the battles, by yesterday night. Now, obviously, I think the one that people are giving more attention because of Shedeur Sanders' involvement in the matter is Joe Flacco being named the week 1 starter for the Browns. Really, I don't know why people were all up in a buzz about this. I just don't. Like, could you really be surprised about them going with the 40-year-old veteran to start off this season? I don't see how anyone was surprised by that, to be quite honest with you. So I don't even really need to talk about it all that much. Because it's like Joe Flacco's resume. This is going to be pretty interesting to say. Compared to the other guys in that quarterback room, especially the ones who are healthy and ready to go. And that is not everybody. His resume speaks for itself. He has all the right to be trusted with the reins to at least start things off in the 2025 regular season. And the fact that that comes as a surprise, I mean, this is going to be crazy to say as well, but I can't believe people are disrespecting Joe Flacco like that. Like, again, in terms of supposedly elite quarterbacks, he might not be in the upper echelon of that. But he's got a leg up on everyone else in that quarterback room. Whether it comes to the fact that he has championship pedigree, winning a Super Bowl, whether you look at his overall experience in the league, being a 16, 17-year veteran with multiple NFL teams. He's been all over the place. He knows how this shit works. That is more than you can say about every other quarterback in there, out of the ones that are actually available. And most importantly, even when you look at some of their inactive quarterbacks, this version of Joe Flacco isn't going to cost you a whole lot of money. And the Browns desperately need to make sure that they aren't spending more money that they don't need to. Biggest thing right there. That's all I'm going to say for that. But what is more important when it comes to the quarterback battles in this preseason leading up to the regular season would be none other than what's been going on with the Colts organization. And they would make a decision that is very interesting, although, again, understandable. They would start, or say that they would start, Daniel Jones for week 1. Yeah. And it's just so damn crazy, bro. I could not believe it. Now again, I've been repeatedly saying, even when Daniel Jones first got signed there, I'd been repeatedly saying that this is just a useless quarterback battle because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Like, I look at the entire situation and I can see how you would make the decision from an optical lens. Like, yes, Anthony Richardson has all the potential in the world, and they've even come out and said as such. Their general manager, their ownership, everybody's come out and said that even with Anthony Richardson Sr. not being named a Week 1 starter, that doesn't truly affect his overall future with the team. They're still going to do as much as they can to invest the time and energy into developing him as a prospect long term. They are very much committed to that, and they've come out and said it. Yet at the same time, when you look at what both of them have done in their last season as a starting quarterback, neither option is a very good one. Neither option. Yet, you would much rather have, in this situation, a quarterback in Daniel Jones who is only actively costing you around, because I believe the deal was a 1-year, $13 million deal. They're not eating up the other money from the previous contract extension that he had with the Giants. And again, the fact that the Giants chose him over fucking Saquon Barkley is crazy. But nevertheless, they are getting him for relatively cheap compared to that. And it is very much a rental. So, you can afford to have him in the lineup. No, his numbers are not elite by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're talking about a person who in 2023 literally managed to go through one of the worst seasons imaginable. Because he wasn't healthy, for one. He missed 11 games. And even in that time span, passed for just 909 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Alright? That ain't good. That ain't good. And then he was so bad for the Giants in the first half of last season as well that they just decided to completely punt on him after he posted a 2-8 record. At least he managed to get over 2,000 yards passing in this one, but it still didn't lead to victories. Although he managed to steal one against the damn Seahawks during this time span. As embarrassing as that was, it just needed to be brought up there. Because it did happen. I can't sit here and act like it did not. Oh, man. But yeah. I guess they believe truly that throughout the entire offseason and throughout this preseason so far, mainly the preseason factor comes down to an availability thing as well. Maybe they feel as though, despite Daniel Jones missing those 11 games in 2023, and despite him not even playing for the Vikings pretty much in all because of Sam Darnold's heater last season, they still feel as though he's going to be a bit more durable for them than Anthony Richardson Sr. has been. And if it came down to that, it's just kind of tough. Because from Anthony Richardson's perspective as well, we are talking about a quarterback who did have one of the worst NFL seasons, and if not one of the worst, the single worst starting quarterback caliber season in terms of accuracy from a completion percentage standpoint in NFL history for that position. Ever. There's no disputing that element. You cannot sit here and tell me that what he did last season was redeemable. And if anything, that historically bad performance is what brought Daniel Jones over in the first place. Honestly, I didn't think that he was going to win the starting job. I think it's pretty fucked up because, again, Anthony Richardson Sr., honestly, in the snaps that he got in this preseason, played pretty well. And yet, just because of one thumb and just because of one pinky finger injury that he had no control over, you're going to give the reins to Daniel Jones? That's just kind of wild. I mean, yes, you can say that he is the long-term solution at quarterback. But let's be perfectly honest about this. The longer that Anthony Richardson Sr. is sitting on the bench, the more that his opportunities are being limited, and the more that his potential as a quarterback, as raw of a talent as he is being wasted completely. What do you think he's going to learn from Daniel Jones? I think about that. You really think he's going to be sitting on the sidelines picking up game from Daniel Jones? Like, okay. It's pretty fucked up stuff. Again, obviously that's not the only reason why. Again, I get it. Like, that is something that you cannot come back from easily. Not just physically, psychologically as well. Do you know what kind of shit that does to your head when you go through a season as rough as Anthony Richardson Sr. just did? Like, that's a fair way to think about this as well. I mean, that has got to be bothering him and eating away at him every single day. Even if he has been playing better in the preseason. That is something that is going to stick with him for a long time. And until he can truly play elite, he's not going to be able to shake that label. So this could also be a way, looking at it from another lens, this could be a way to take a little bit, just a little bit, of pressure off of Anthony Richardson Sr. as well. Just for a little bit of time. Once he does become reinserted as a starter, though, because, again, a lot of this is on Anthony Richardson Sr. as well. Like, there were still instances in the midst of all of this where he either quit on his team or didn't give full effort on the football field, which is also a true death sentence for any person in a leadership role on the team. You can't publicly come out and say that you quit on your team after a play. And you can't go out and not give maximum effort on every possession and expect to remain a key component of any team. Like, literally, right after that incident, where he came out and went on the sideline after that run of his, I'm pretty sure he got benched right after that. Again, that kind of stuff doesn't always work. But from that standpoint, that is why you also go with Daniel Jones. Even if he might suck, you at least have some idea that he is most likely going to give full effort and not have that kind of mentality on the football field. It's not the end of Anthony Richardson Sr.'s career. I just want to make that very clear. It's definitely tough that you lose this battle. You win some, you lose some. That's how it usually goes. And honestly, with the way that Daniel Jones is as a quarterback, I can honestly sit here and tell you right now that I don't know when it would happen during the regular season, but I can assure you that at some point, Anthony Richardson Sr. will have gotten his starting job back. It is going to happen. I do not have full confidence in Daniel Jones being able to lead an NFL team for a full 17-game season. I don't. Especially because he never has. Think about that. The NFL has only recently started this 17-game season. And yet, in every single one, he hadn't done it. Now, yeah, you can go ahead and say that in the 2022 season, they were primed to make the playoffs, and he did sit out the last game of that season. So technically, he did. Fine. But in these back-to-back seasons, he couldn't even make it through the first half of the regular season. Can I really sit here with a straight face and tell you that he's now magically going to be able to do this in Indy? I guess all of the more optimistic Colts fans would be hoping for this to go down. But I don't see Daniel Jones being able to pull that off. Truthfully, I don't. You have to prove a lot of people wrong in order to make that happen. Jalen McMillan would be ruled out for week 1 and is apparently set to miss even more time than previously thought, due to a neck injury that he suffered from. Now, that certainly sucks for Jalen McMillan. Showed a lot of promise last season, even as a potential tertiary option at wide receiver. The man, in the games that he played in, was a pretty solid piece, especially when you look at the amount of times he was targeted in the red zone. I mean, 37 receptions for 461 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Like, that's pretty impressive stuff for any rookie wide receiver coming in and playing alongside Mike Evans for most of the season and Chris Godwin, at least for a bit of the regular season. So it's definitely a talent that they're going to miss, especially with the fact that he probably could have taken a little bit of a jump. And if he continues to progress, as some of the other older wide receivers phase out, could potentially become one of their more important wide receivers down the line. I truly believe that. But as far as the Bucs are constructed now, they are still in very good hands. Because if everyone's in good health, your top 3 wide receivers are still Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Emeka Egbuka. Yes, they will miss Jalen McMillan, but do I think they are going to take a massive step back without him? Probably not. If everyone's intact, they're going to be pretty formidable for any team. All over the board. You have wide receivers for days. You got Bucky Irving just being a great all-around back. And you have Rachaad White, at least, again, if he is able to return up to that point, as a receiving option out of the backfield as well. They're just a stacked team. So they're going to be fine. I have no worries about that at all. But another thing to caution with another 49ers player, because just before I started doing this, it would be reported by Schefter that Patrick Taylor Jr., one of their backup running backs, is now out for this season. Now, mind you, again, Taylor Jr. is a full-fledged backup at the running back position. And yet, the 49ers had to sign him last season. He got a few reps, but this is realistically a player that shouldn't be getting much playing time anyways, because a lot of your other running back options should be ready to go. And yet, it felt like, for at least the start of the season, depending on the full severity of the Isaac Granda injury, he was probably going to still serve as maybe the third string running back. Because they only recently just picked up Jeff Wilson Jr., and you also have Christian McCaffrey being your starter, but of course, you have to be careful tending to his health. You just have to be at this point. So they've still been pretty thin at that position. And Patrick Taylor Jr. could have supplemented that. Yet, with that coming up, that ain't going to happen. And, man, it's just crazy for the 49ers. Now, again, you would hope, especially if you're a 49ers fan, that the injuries don't get as out of hand as they were last season. Because, believe me, yes, they had a massive year of regression overall. And a lot of that could be attributed to the fact that they were so damn depleted everywhere due to injury. But it feels like that is trending toward that way yet again, especially at the running back position. You would hope not. I just... Man. Certainly unfortunate to have to continue continue hearing that if you're in that team. Like, it's just tough, for sure. Hopefully he can recover from it. And I just don't know what the solution would be for the 49ers here. Like, your two running backs right now are literally Christian McCaffrey and Jeff Wilson Jr. So, do you go out and get a third? You're probably going to have to. You also don't have Jordan Mason anymore. And even he ended up going down with injury last season, prompting you to put in Isaac Rendo, who is now currently hurt. It's just all just a weird situation for them. They got to figure it out. And honestly, pretty fast. I mean, again, season's just creeping up. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.